It gives me enormous pleasure to introduce our new spokesman on fisheries, Ray Finch, MEP.
The future's so bright, I've got to wear shades. They always put the comedian on before the headline act, don't they? Yeah. Right. This time I'm going to be deadly serious, because what the EU and successive UK governments have done to our marine heritage and our fishing industry is no laughing matter. It's true. But before I talk about that, though, I want to just quickly say something. Any UKIP South East Committee members here? Right. I want you all to fill a car to take to Clacton on Douglas Carswell's election day. I'll be there too, and I'll put £20 into the committee election funds of every South East branch that sends a carload. A victory for Douglas and a victory for John Bickley in Middleton makes a general election victory in your constituency that much more likely. We have to do it. Now to business. You're going to ask me about our fisheries policy. I'm tempted to say just 4 words, maybe 3. Them's are fish. But I think you and our fishermen will want and are entitled to a bit more than that. Let's start with where we are. As long as we remember members of the European Union, our waters belong to them. Our fish belong to them. Our policy is determined by them. And it means our fisheries are run by Commissioner Carmenu Vella, a chap from Malta. I spoke to him in my office on Wednesday. Nice enough to come and see me. I've got a nice coffee machine. He seems like a reasonably nice man, but his business is to take power from our nation and give it to the EU. I told him about some of the things UK fishermen are struggling with, and, you know, we'll see what goes on, but I'm not incredibly optimistic. One of the major problems is quotas. They're transferable, and they can be owned by people and businesses who have nothing whatsoever to do with fishing. Now, those of you who went to the gala dinner last night may be aware I support Everton. But we're probably getting beat already. But I'm not the greatest fan of Manchester United, as you'd expect. But I hope you would all agree with me. This is a Rory McIlroy moment, isn't it? Whatever you think of United as a football club, they're not exactly renowned for their fishing fleet. And yet, under the EU's quota system, rumour has it they were at one time the largest owner of fishing quota in the UK. How surreal is that? Of course, it's more or less unregulated and not transparent, so we don't really know the truth on it. So that's something that needs dealing with. It's essentially a problem for our governments as well. Well, the UK has the largest fleet of boats under 10 metres in Europe, but the subsidy policy of the EU is geared to help the larger boats, the fleets of France and Spain and so on. They're subsidised at every turn. They're subsidised when they're built, they're subsidised when they go to sea, they're subsidised when they don't go to sea, and they're subsidised when they're scrapped, which is nice, isn't it? So I thought I'd use the European Parliament's expertise to find out more about this. There's a French lady in the information service came to see me. She was charming and disarmingly honest. She said the system was run by member states using taxpayers' money. Quelle surprise. And despite her best efforts and all the fine words about transparency, how the money was allocated was as clear as mud. In fact, she suggested, all their attempts to get facts and figures had been quietly ignored, or worse. And she works for them. All I can conclude from this, and you will conclude, is that all of us are paying for the EU to plunder our fish. These rules are designed for the advantage of others, but implemented to our cost. Take drift nets. Well, the EU is taking our drift nets. It's a policy designed to address a problem with Italian and other boats which use nets in the Mediterranean, which are up to 10 times bigger than they're legally allowed to be. So it's a blanket ban. It's costing British fishermen their livelihoods, when our fishermen are already abiding by all of their rules. Bycatch isn't a real problem with British thrift-net fishermen. It's not a problem. Our fishermen do the right thing, and yet they're being punished by the EU. As everyone says, it's the guiding phrase, one size fits all. What the EU's fisheries policy also does is it plunders not only our seas, but oceans across the world. The various EU fisheries agreements, the means by which the EU bribes the elite of developing nations to sell out their own fishermen and block the development of their own processing industries. It works like this. The EU makes a payment of your money for the right to have a certain number of fishing ships catch a certain tonnage in the exclusive economic zone of this country. And what's wrong with that? I hear you ask, it's only business. Just about everything. Do you think the money the EU pays goes to the local fishing communities or into the bank accounts of the rich elite who run these countries? Do you think the number of ships is popularly monitored? The tonnage carefully weighed? Call me a cynic. Go on. Thank you. I doubt it. Right. These agreements, they're a perfect recipe to incentivise corruption, encourage backhanders and give to the elite at the expense of every man. Much like our wind farms, really. As well as turning third world fisheries into deserts and further impoverishing subsistence fishermen, but you and I would expect nothing else. Of course, the EU elite does deals like this, which help the elite of other nations at the expense of people like us. It's the same kind of thinking which says you mustn't talk about the effect of immigration and you must just put up with the effect on your jobs and prospects. So they don't want you to attack these agreements, and the people of the developing world must put up with the effect on their fishing boats and their lives. Now, the sharp-eared amongst you, you'll have noticed that I earlier used the term fishing ships. That's because the EU ships will be generally so much bigger and more advanced because of our tax than the local boats. It's like comparing an industrial vacuum cleaner with a dustpan and brush. Except you'll notice the EU even demands to control how powerful your vacuum is. I'm sorry if I'm speaking quicker than usual. They've got some other bloke on after me. The EU ships hoover up tonnages which local fishermen can only dream of, thereby ensuring the locals can't make a living. It's nothing less than a new colonialism, and it's killing people and destroying communities. And I ask this question: how much has the EU, and to be fair, the other developed countries, driven people like the Somalis to piracy by ensuring they can't make a living fishing off their own coasts? So what's the alternative to this mess? What would we do? Let me stress, there's very little we can do while we're in the European Union, even if I'm on the Fisheries Committee. What I'm going to outline is only what we can do when we're out. It really is that simple. First, them's our fish. We will assert a 200-mile maritime exclusion zone, known in the business as an economic exclusion zone, exclusive economic zone even, or an EEZ. And no one will take resources from it without our agreement, be they fishing, mining, or drilling beneath the ocean floor. I haven't got to the good bit yet. This zone will be 200 miles from all of our coastline, the Falkland Islands as much as Norfolk, Tristan da Cunha as much as Cornwall, Ascension Island as much as Aberdeen. And if the pusillanimous, turncoat international lawyers, big words for the little Scouser, try to declare they are not part of this United Kingdom, we will hold referenda. And if the local people want it, which I think they might, we will incorporate them into the UK. If the French can have overseas departments that mean bits of the Pacific Ocean, a part of metropolitan France, then why can't we do the same? Oh, I forgot to mention, It will include Gibraltar. There will be no Gibraltar sellout under UKIP. And if this means investing in our Navy to police and protect it, then UKIP will do that as well. In the firm of Vosper's in Hampshire, mostly Hampshire, we've got a world-beating producer of fast patrol boats. UKIP would confirm the purchase due next year in the Strategic Defence Spending Review of 3 new planned River-class FPBs, and we will maintain the current 4 rather than scrap them. And more if needs be. We need a strong Navy, and our Navy needs a strong UKIP government. I've got to go. It means it's far too soon to flesh out the exact post-Brexit arrangements, but I'll share you my wish list. I want to see UK boats gathering UK fish and landing them. Yes, in the UK. Once they're there, we'll process them in UK factories, sell them in our marketplaces, or export as finished product from our own country. I've lost my page. We'll run a system of licences which foreign boats must pay for to ensure that what is taken is sustainable. No tragedy of the commons under us. These fish will also be landed and processed in the UK. The British people will not be cheated. I think I better go. This will come out of UKIP's maritime policy. I hope it meets with all of your approval. Thank you.